Hi students, Assalamu alaikum. This is Wahid Yusuf, your English teacher, and today would be the last lecture of the poem The Tale of Custard the Dragon. And in today's lecture, we'll discuss this poem. We'll critically analyze this poem today, and we'll discuss certain issues of this poem today. We'll discuss its historical context. We'll discuss its themes. We'll discuss its style, etc. And this would be the last lecture of this poem, most probably, as we have already read the poem, and we discussed the poem as far as its poetic techniques, poetic devices are concerned. We discussed them as well, and this is the last lecture we are going to make on this poem. See, first, starting this, we shall critically analyze this poem. We shall critically analyze this poem, and doing a critical analysis of this poem, we shall start with historical context or historical background. What is the historical context, historical background of this poem? See, The Tale of Custard the Dragon, written by Eugen Nash, is a children's poem. So it is simply children's poem. That is poem written for children. And as far as its dates are concerned, it was first published in 1936. So the first publication of this poem, that is the first dates when it was published. So it was for the first time it was published in 1936, and later it was later in 1995. Dates are 1995. It was published with illustrations by Lynn M Munsinger, it is a name, who published this poem in 1995 with illustrations. And as far as this poem is concerned, it is described as probably his, that is Nash's, most famous poem for kids. So there is this person, James Roland is the person who described this poem as probably Nash's most famous poem for kids. So Nash has written a lot of poems for kids. He has written a lot of light verse, but this poem, that is The Tale of Custard the Dragon, this is considered one of his most famous poem for kids. His most famous poem for kids. And the poem is one of Nash's light verses. So this poem is also counted under the heading of light verses. And he has written more than 500 such poems, 500 more than 500 light verses. And that is for his unconventional rhyme schemes and use upon, he was declared the country's best known writer of humorous poetry. So, in the beginning of this poem, I told you that this Nash is very famous for unconventional rhyme schemes. He is very famous for light verse, and he is very famous for humorous poetry. So that is because of this light verse that he has employed all these things in his poetry, these unconventional rhyme schemes, the use of pun, the and he's that is why he's declared as country's best known writer of humorous poetry. See, this poem, that is The Tale of Custard the Dragon, written by Eugen Nash, it is a poem written for children that we discussed. And in this poem, the poet presents a story of Belinda, who is a little girl. He presents a story of Belinda, a little girl who lived with her four pets, namely Black Kitten and a Grey Mouse, Yellow Dog, and a little dragon. And apart from that, she had a little red wagon to play with. To play with. And she lived in a house which is known as White House. And however, the poet tries to present a heroic sketch of the characters described in the poem. See, the poet tries to describe the heroic sketch the heroic sketch of the characters described in the poem, but ultimately it was meant for creating a humorous effect. In the first part of the poem, we observe that he creates the characters as brave. He represents them as brave, as great, and they can be as ferocious as an angry tiger. They can chase away the lioness, etc. And Belinda is compared as the barrel full of bears. So it was done because of that humorous effect, because he wanted to create a humorous effect. That is why these characters are presented in that way in the initial stage of the poem. And it parodies the excess of self-confidence that makes one appear as a mere fool in crisis. So it mocks these things. It talks about self-confidence, overconfidence, that makes a person appear as a mere fool in crisis. That is what happened in this poem actually, when these creatures were attacked, when Belinda and her pets were attacked. Those who were bragging about themselves, who were bragging about their bravery, they flew away, and they couldn't agitate, they couldn't face that pirate. So that is how it parodies the excess of self-confidence, that is overconfidence, and makes one appear as a mere fool in crisis. And whereas the cowardly creature, the little dragon, comes out victorious at the end. And that is another part of the story, another part of the poem, where this creature, that is the dragon, who was always mocked, who was always teased, and who was even tickled, because he always wanted this nice, safe cage, and he comes out victorious at the end. So this also shows us that there is a lot of difference between appearances versus realities. There is a lot of difference between appearances and realities. What we see can be different what we observe actually, and there is a lot of difference between actions and words as well. Now if we try to discuss the structure of the poem, the tale of Custard the dragon is the poem written in the ballad form. And we discussed what ballad is. I don't have to discuss that again. So it is a ballad. It is written in the ballad form. And the humorous elements in the poem make it an ideal example of a parody. Make it an ideal example of a parody. Nash, through this poem, tries to give a moral lesson. He's trying to give us a moral lesson. Hence, it is also an example of a fable. As far as fable is concerned, fable fable is a short story where animals animals act as characters conveying a moral. Simple. In simple terms, I can say this, that fable is a technique of writing where animals are given the characteristics of humans, where animals play as characters just like humans. So in this poem, the animals, the creatures, that is dog, rat, that's cat, and the dragon, they also play as characters. They also play as characters in this poem. And it is also an example of fable. In a fable, inanimate objects or animals can speak, and each character represents a human quality, like one can find in allegorical poem. And there are total of 15 stanzas. As far as talking about the structure of this poem, so we are talking about the structure of this poem. First, this poem is a ballad, and it is filled with humorous elements, and the humorous elements in the poem makes it an ideal example of a parody, and it also tries to give a moral lesson. It also tries to give a moral lesson, and it is also an example of fable. Fable is where inanimate objects or animals can speak, or simply they can represent themselves as human. They can represent themselves as human, and characters represent a human quality, like one can find in humans. The human quality which we find in humans, the animal characters perform like humans. That is what this fable is. And this poem contains 15 stanzas in the and there are 15 stanzas in the poem, and every stanza having four lines in it. And I earlier told you also that there is this 13th stanza which contains six lines, and the rhyme scheme of this poem is AABB, and it goes on like this throughout the poem. And this rhyme scheme is also known as a regular rhyme scheme, and Nash preferred this rhyming pattern while composing his light poetry. So when he composed this light poetry, he preferred this rhyme scheme of AABB. Literary devices, we have already discussed. We find a lot of devices used in this poem. That is a repetition. We find a rhythm. We find alliteration. We find anaphora. We find simile. We find assonance. We find, so all these allusion, even we find onomatopoeia sounds. We find, so all these techniques are used in the poem. All these techniques are used in the poem as. And apart from these poetic devices, the poet uses the techniques of irony. So yes, irony is also a literary technique, but it is somewhat different from poetic device. It is somewhat different from figure of speech. So he uses this irony, he uses satire throughout the poem. Irony, satire, you people know these terms, what these terms mean. So he uses irony, he uses satire, he even uses sarcasm. He uses sarcasm throughout the poem. Irony, satire, sarcasm throughout the poem. See, he gives us an example that Belinda is brave as a barrel full of beers, as brave as a barrel full of beers. It is irony. It is irony because she's praising herself, and the poet tells us that she's as brave as the barrel full of beers, but actually, ironically, she's not even a brave lady. She has no courage to stand, even she has no courage to stand in front of that pirate. So she's nowhere brave. Not even, she's not a normal person who can sometimes stand against the forest. She's flying away when she saw that pirate. So these things are what we call irony. Ironically, we are told that she's as brave as a barrel full of beers, but in practicality, we see that she fled away when she saw that pirate. And where was that bravery at that time? So that is what we find in this poem. That is what irony, sarcasm is. And there is an allusion to Percival, one of the knights of King Arthur's round table. So that technique is also used in the poem, the technique of allusion. the technique of illusion. And then we have this onomatopoeic sound is also here, weak, growled, clank, etc. So these are other terms which are used in the poem, and literary devices which are used in the poem, along with those literary devices which we discussed in the earlier lecture. Now coming to the themes of this poem. Themes of this poem. See, the tale of Custard the dragon presents themes such as appearance versus reality. This is one of the main themes of this poem. Appearances versus reality. So what we see actually, what what appear before us is something different from what the reality is. And another theme we have, hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is another theme. So, appearance versus reality, hypocrisy, and another theme is courage, which is shown by the this dragon. Yes, and jealousy. Jealousy is another theme. When the dragon fights that pirate, when the dragon kills that pirate, then the characters came and they started telling this dragon that you did a good job, you killed that pirate, but we would have been better than you. We would have been as brave. We would have been twice braver than you. So that is what jealousy is. They felt very much jealous when he killed that pirate, because they felt jealous because he was very meek, he was very timid, and they had never imagined that he's going to kill somebody, he's going to fight somebody. And when he did all these things, they were jealous and they thought in their minds that we would have been three times braver than him, would do this and would do that. So all these things talk about jealousy in this poem. The main theme of the poem is appearance versus reality. Yes, so this is the main theme here. The creatures like the cat, mouse, and dog appear as courageous, but in crisis, they reveal their real covered eyes. That is what actuality is and what appearance is. So they appeared something else, and in reality, they were something else. And see, the creatures who are cat, mouse, dog, even Belinda, they reveal their real covered eyes when they had to face that pirate. And in contrast, the ugly and formidable dragon, who is in reality dangerous for them all, appears as a covered creature. He appears as a covered creature, and he asks for a nice safe cage, and he is teased by even that little mouse teases him. The little cat teases him. This dangerous animal is teased by little cat and little mouse, but in reality, he is truly a dangerous animal. But during the crisis, he saves everyone. So, someone's appearance doesn't make the person powerful. It is on how one reacts when impediments block the way and scare him. So appearances would never do anything. Actions speak louder than words. Actions speak louder than words, and this appearance would never do anything. And the actions they speak. Actions speak. And what actually reality is, what the reality was as far as these animals are concerned, the reality was they were covered and they were scared. And when that pirate entered their house, they fled away, and no one from them faced that pirate except this dragon. Moreover, the theme of hypocrisy is present in the 9th and 13th stanza particularly. Here, the showy creatures run away when the pirate creeps in. They even give baseless explanations about their fleeing. They said that I was in confusion, I couldn't face that dragon, otherwise, I could have killed him, I could have chopped him, etc., etc. However, the dragons comment adds a cherry at the top of Nash's irony. He remarks, I quite agree that everybody is braver than me. So these are the themes of the poem. First one, main theme is appearance versus reality, and then hypocrisy. There is this theme of hypocrisy as well. When even after losing, even after this getting scared, they even tried to console that person, to even brag about their bravery. They told that we got someone among the characters told that I got confused, otherwise I would have faced that dragon, I would have faced that pirate, sorry. So all these things tell us about their hypocrisy. So this was something about this poem, that is critical analysis of this poem. I hope you might have understood this lecture. And it is all for today. I think, yes, it is all for today. So with this I conclude this today's lecture, and I hope you will be fine and fit, hale and hearty. So with this I bid you Allah Hafiz and have a nice day.